1. Envision, at the outset, a winter devoid of warmth, ushering in a catastrophic period. Picture the sudden blackout, not confined to your own dwelling or street, but engulfing an entire continent. Within mere moments of this narrative, you find yourself stripped of every essential for survival. No heating, no hot water, no subtle hum of electricity within your walls. Only an oppressive silence pervades, pressing down upon you. Now, transport yourself to Europe during the winter of 1944. London's gas facilities lie in ruins from bombings. Hamburg's power infrastructure has crumbled into darkness. Warsaw anticipates coal shipments that will never materialize. The conflict not only leveled cities, but also eradicated heat itself. A woman in Warsaw, in a December 1943 diary entry, lamented, "We slept huddled together, yet still we shivered." Her sentiments resonated with thousands. Hypothermia emerged as an invisible adversary, seeping through broken windows and damaged brickwork. Civilian defense authorities estimated that nearly 40% of winter civilian fatalities in several regions were attributable not to explosions or gunfire, but to the unrelenting grip of the cold. Tonight, on History Prime, we confront this stark reality. Humanity, during these winters, contended not solely with armies on the battlefield, but with an older, more subtle and relentless foe. A cold that enveloped entire nations. Within this frozen world, individuals were compelled to improvise warmth from meager resources. Their creations, later subject to hushed discussions, regulations, and even subtle discouragement in some areas, were, during those bleak nights, instrumental in preserving families. 2. Before delving into the heater itself, it is crucial to comprehend the conflict that necessitated its creation. A thermal war that, though documented, has largely faded from memory. This was more than a mere military confrontation. It was a deliberate assault on energy infrastructure. Strategic bombing campaigns extended beyond factories and airfields, explicitly targeting coal depots, fuel refineries, and railway lines vital for winter provisions. Each explosion signified another community sinking deeper into the frigid depths. A 1942 report by the UK Home Intelligence Service succinctly articulated the grim truth. Fuel shortage is the silent killer. Indeed it was. As coal became scarce, homes transformed into iceboxes. Insulation was rudimentary. Windows rattled in the wind. Buildings damaged by bomb blasts could no longer retain heat. Mortality rates soared dramatically each winter, not from frontline combat, but from the collapse of the thermal infrastructure upon which civilians depended for survival. This aspect of the war is largely omitted from textbooks. Not the violence of battle, but the gradual chilling of entire neighborhoods. Streets became so frozen that water congealed inside kitchen bowls. Families resorted to burning furniture for warmth. This context forms the bedrock of our narrative. Only by grasping the enormity of this thermal war can we truly understand why ordinary people were driven to invent something extraordinary. An impromptu heater that transmuted a simple tin can into a life-saving device. 3. Thus we arrive at the ingenuity itself, later referred to as the tin can heater, the survival heat candle, or, in some locales, the prescribed wax stove. What proves astonishing to nearly everyone is that this invention was not government designed, nor was it tested by any military engineering corps, nor introduced by any official publication. This contraption emerged from kitchens, basements, and makeshift workshops, fabricated by civilians determined to resist freezing. Contrast this with the heating implements of the era. The German military utilized Esbit tablets, compact, standardized, and engineered for soldiers. American forces relied on sterno, a secure gel fuel intended for field cooking. Canadians experimented with early buddy burners. All these were official products, designed for regulated use in military environments. Yet, the heater that sustained entire families originated outside official records. It came from individuals who recognized they could not await assistance, for none was forthcoming. They repurposed whatever was at hand: a tin can, cardboard strips, leftover candle wax or rendered fat, fueled by a desperate need for warmth. What materialized was neither truly a candle nor precisely a stove, but a diminutive, resolute, radiant engine of survival. A device simple enough to construct by hand, yet potent enough to alter the temperature of an enclosed space. This was grassroots engineering in its purest form, born out of necessity, refined through trial and error, and carried through the war's darkest nights. 4. To grasp how this improvised heater could warm entire rooms, we must delve into the physics underlying its deceptive simplicity. Initially, a tin can packed with cardboard and wax seems crude, almost primitive. However, its efficacy stems from three interconnected principles of heat transfer, principles that even contemporary emergency equipment sometimes fails to harness. The first is radiant lateral heat. Unlike a conventional candle, which directs most of its warmth straight upwards and away, the survival heat candle disperses heat across the entire surface of the can. The metal walls directly absorb energy from the flame and emit a steady warmth, radiating sideways into the room rather than dissipating vertically into the air. The second principle is conduction. As the flame contacts the wax-saturated cardboard, heat immediately propagates into the tin's metal casing. Metal conducts heat far more efficiently than the flimsy wax of a standard candle, transforming the entire can into a low-level radiator. Within minutes, its surface becomes sufficiently hot to radiate warmth in all directions. Yet, the most potent element arises when a clay pot or metal bucket is inverted over the burning can. Here, thermal mass becomes crucial. Clay and iron not only absorb heat, but also store it. They act as reservoirs, absorbing the flame's energy and releasing it gradually, akin to a miniature masonry stove. Contemporary scientific measurements corroborate what civilians instinctively discovered 80 years ago. Paraffin wax possesses an astonishing energy density of approximately 9,000 to 10,000 BTUs per kilogram. Cardboard, once charred, forms a carbon structure that glows like smouldering embers, facilitating continuous vaporization of wax across a broad surface area. This expansive, glowing base transmutes a tiny flame into a continuous thermal engine. This was not magic or mere chance. It was physics applied by ordinary individuals who, though perhaps never uttering the term thermodynamics, nonetheless grasped its principles through the imperative of survival. 5. What renders this heater remarkable is not its single instance of effectiveness in one city for a group of desperate survivors. Rather, It is the independent emergence of the identical design, nearly the same formula, across 4 distinct regions of the wartime world. The 3-to-1 ratio of wax to core material is not merely a figure from a YouTube video. It is a proportion repeatedly corroborated by historical documents, civil defense records, and first-hand testimonies. In a reconstructed excerpt from British Home Front pamphlet number 12, families were advised to fashion wax-based heating substitutes using a strikingly similar proportion. In Scandinavian civil defense archives, the device appears under a different name, the verikaka, constructed with wax poured over rolled cardboard, again aligning with the 3-to-1 measurement. The same ratio surfaces in Eastern European partisan accounts, where fighters recounted tightly rolling cloth into cans and saturating it with tallow or melted candle remnants. Across the Atlantic, Canadian scouting manuals from 1945 documented the buddy burner, an almost identical heater made with wax and cardboard in precisely that relationship. These parallels are not coincidental. They form a recognizable pattern. When resources were scarce and survival was at stake, this ratio yielded the most stable flame, the longest burn time, and the optimal thermal output without excessive oxygen consumption. The fact that 4 disparate cultures converged on the same formula imparts a kind of scientific authority to this heater, rooted not in laboratory experiments, but in widespread practical experience. It demonstrates that the tin can heater was not merely a clever trick. It was a rigorously field-tested survival tool, standardized not by institutions, but by the lived exigencies of thousands. When the stakes were highest, people everywhere arrived at the same conclusion. This was the formula for maintaining warmth. 6. Even today, many struggle to accept that such a small, improvised heater could effectively warm a living space. However, both scientific and historical evidence confirm its efficacy. Modern experiments have shown that one properly constructed tin can heater can raise the temperature of a sealed 6 to 10 square meter room by 8 to 12 degrees Celsius in just a few hours. While this may not transform winter into summer, in a world where freezing meant death, an 8-degree increase represented the critical difference between life and imminent peril. Historical diaries corroborate these findings. During the harsh winter of the Leningrad siege, a family recorded, "The can warmed our shelter enough to thaw the water." In Norway, fishermen employed similar heaters to maintain habitable conditions in their cabins during coastal storms. In Britain, some air raid shelters relied on clusters of these cans to keep damp underground rooms above freezing. The secret lay in amplification. A single can provided warmth on its own, but when 2 or 3 cans burned together beneath an inverted clay pot or iron pail, the device transformed. The pot absorbed the rising heat, stabilized it, and then released it evenly throughout the room, creating a steady convective circulation that no mere candle could ever replicate. Clay, in particular, proved to be an unexpected boon to this design. It did not flare or crack under heat. It simply stored energy and radiated it outward at a rate easily perceptible to the human body. This explains why, when positioned in a room with minimal drafts, the heater's effect felt so substantial. It focused small blazes into a core of thermal energy, which then diffused as a gentle, room-encompassing wave of heat. This is not hyperbole, nor folklore, nor a romanticized account. The heater functioned because it adhered to fundamental principles of heat transference, and its creators grasped a concept often overlooked today. Survival isn't about the sheer size of a flame, but rather the sagacious application of its warmth. 7 verifiable instances, confirmed by documented records. While physics explains the heater's operation, historical evidence attests to its true renown. Its narrative isn't preserved in schematics or governmental handbooks, but in locales where frigidity reigned supreme. In the United Kingdom, families huddled deep within air raid shelters beneath London and Manchester as sirens wailed overhead. Many of these shelters, lacking insulation, remained damp despite numerous blankets. However, archived reports from wardens highlight small, glowing tin can heaters nestled among civilians, generating enough warmth to avert frostbite. Farther north, Norwegian fishermen relied on similar devices inside their wooden coastal cabins. During raging fjord storms and wind whistling through structural gaps, a single makeshift heater transformed their freezing cabins into livable spaces. In Warsaw, where basements served as impromptu homes after extensive devastation, survivors' diaries frequently describe the same scene. We gathered around the can as if it were a miniature stove. In these subterranean rooms, illuminated only by flickering candlelight, the heater transcended its utility, becoming a potent symbol of enduring human warmth. On the Soviet front lines, soldiers fabricated their own versions. In trenches where timber was scarce and temperatures plummeted, they used tallow-soaked cloth packed into ration tins to thaw equipment, dry gloves, and preserve their dexterity. These were not isolated innovations, but concurrent solutions born in environments where the cold threatened to finish what the war had initiated. The heater emerged in the conflict's most desperate corners for one undeniable reason: it worked. 8. The forbidden object. Why authorities sought to suppress it. We now arrive at the most frequently misconstrued aspect of this narrative: why the heater, despite its life-saving capabilities, encountered discouragement or subtle prohibition in several regions. The truth is far more intricate than mere political maneuvering or wartime paranoia. The issue was not the heater itself, but the contexts in which people were compelled to use it. Many bombed-out cities had shelters tightly sealed against debris and gas, with ventilation being minimal or entirely absent. In such conditions, any open flame could prove lethal. The tin can heater, burning steadily for extended periods, consumed oxygen and produced carbon monoxide at a rate that these confined spaces could not adequately dissipate. Evidence of this concern appears in numerous wartime documents. The UK Civil Defence Bulletin of 1943 included a stern warning against using improvised wax heaters in enclosed areas, urging wardens to deter their use except in properly ventilated rooms. Swedish civil protection circulars in 1944 explicitly forbade the use of wax-based heaters in sealed bomb shelters due to the risk of carbon monoxide accumulation. Within the Warsaw Underground network, resistance groups documented tragic instances where families seeking warmth in airtight cellars succumbed overnight to carbon monoxide poisoning. Authorities were not attempting to suppress a beneficial invention. They were striving to prevent a silent killer from claiming more lives. In the chaos of war, official directives had to prioritize caution. A device that performed admirably in a breezy farmhouse or a partly collapsed basement could become deadly in a bunker with a single airtight door. Consequently, the heater's reputation became paradoxical. Celebrated by those it rescued, yet feared by those who comprehended the perils of fire without ventilation. In essence, it was not prohibited for what it intrinsically was, but for the perilous settings where people were forced to deploy it. 9. Engineering ingenuity, the genesis of improvisation. What makes this heater truly exceptional is not just its application, but its developmental trajectory. War has a peculiar capacity for transforming ordinary citizens into practical engineers, and the tin can heater exemplified this. Across Europe, various communities contributed their own innovations to refine its design. One elementary enhancement involved incorporating a small amount of salt into the molten wax, which minimized soot accumulation and yielded a cleaner flame, a tacit technique passed between households. In heavily wooded regions, people mixed pine resin into the wax to prolong the burn time, creating a richer, slower burning fuel that maintained a steady glow throughout long winter nights. Both soldiers and civilians experimented with diverse wick materials. Rolled cotton batting produced a more stable flame, diminishing the likelihood of sudden flares in shifting oxygen conditions. Others discovered that positioning the tin's metal lid vertically behind the heater created a rudimentary yet effective reflector, projecting radiant heat further into the room. None of these modifications appeared in official guidelines. They emerged from empirical testing, errors, and the relentless imperative to endure another night. These improvisations underscore that survival technology is dynamic. It adapts and evolves in the hands of those who most urgently require it. The tin can heater known today is not a singular invention, but rather a lineage of designs shaped by thousands across freezing urban landscapes and battle-scarred territories. In their dire circumstances, they engineered something often overlooked by modern readiness manuals. A heater born of scarcity, honed by necessity, and capable of preserving lives when all else had vanished. 10. Contemporary relevance. Why this still matters. It's tempting to regard the tin can heater as an antiquated artifact, useful only in a shattered bygone era. However, recent history starkly reminds us of the persistent fragility of our systems. In February 2021, Texas experienced a catastrophic power grid failure during a severe winter storm. Millions were deprived of electricity, natural gas, and heating. Modern homes abruptly became the same frigid traps that afflicted Europe in the 1940s. Families resorted to burning furniture, inhabiting cars, and employing improvised methods strikingly similar to those conceived 8 decades prior. The cold was oblivious to the year being 2021. It simply settled in. Much earlier, during Japan's devastating snowstorm of 1981, entire towns were isolated for days. Survival hinged on recalling older methods, strategies for warming small rooms with minimal fuel, techniques for retaining heat with low-tech insulation, and ways to conserve energy by understanding thermal dynamics. When infrastructure collapses, modern expectations crumble alongside it. Centralized heating, constant electricity, and boundless fuel have fostered comfort, but also vulnerability. This unifying lesson transcends these events. Modern convenience breeds fragility. The more we depend on uncontrollable systems, the less prepared we become for their inevitable failures. History, however, imparts adaptability. The tin can heater is more than a wartime relic. It serves as a potent reminder that even in a highly advanced technological world, there will always be moments when survival hinges not on possessions, but on comprehension. In those critical instances, the knowledge preserved from the past becomes our most dependable source of warmth. 11. The mindset, adaptive resilience. By this point, it should be apparent that the true potency of the tin can heater resided not in the container itself. It wasn't merely a candle, nor an ordinary stove. It was a quintessential example of applied folk thermodynamics. Everyday individuals, lacking formal schooling, implemented fundamental principles of heat transfer through sheer intuition and exigency. They didn't require equations to grasp that metal radiates heat, nor textbooks to understand that wax stores energy. Diagrams weren't necessary for them to comprehend that ceramic pots could retain warmth long after the flames had died down. This is the mentality that sustained them through their bleakest winters. A mindset that refuses to depend solely on manufactured equipment. A mindset that declares, "If the world strips me of my tools, I will forge new ones." In contemporary survival culture, there's often an obsession with gear. Solar panels, generators, advanced stoves, specialized fuels. Yet the people of the 1940s understood something more profound. Survival isn't about equipment. It's about transferable knowledge. Knowledge that adapts, transforms, and endures long after devices malfunction and supplies are exhausted. Adaptive resilience is the capacity to utilize whatever is available, to discern potential in what others perceive as waste, and to trust in underlying principles rather than commercial products. The tin can heater is more than an invention. It embodies a philosophy, a conviction that with understanding and ingenuity, even the smallest flame can repel the cold. And this conviction, more than any physical object, is what sustains us. 12. Conclusion. When the world grows cold again. As we draw this narrative to a close, we confront a truth that history frequently reiterates, yet we seldom fully internalize. The world will experience cold once more. Perhaps not through conflict, nor systemic collapse, but through storms, logistical failures, and moments when the systems we rely on falter. And when such events transpire, the lessons bequeathed by those who endured the winter of 1944 transcend mere history. They become imperative instruction. For history is not a static exhibit. It is a vital manual. A manual penned by individuals who survived nights so frigid their breath crystallized indoors, yet still discovered methods to keep their families warm. Their instruments were rudimentary, their materials humble, but their resourcefulness was prodigious. They demonstrate that survival belongs not to the most physically powerful, but to those who comprehend how to ponder, to adapt, and to generate warmth from scarcity. So, imagine now, as the lights dim and the wind intensifies outside, a solitary, diminutive flame flickering within a tin can. Observe its radiant glow. Observe how its radiance permeates the shadowy recesses of an enclosure, and attend to this verity as the intonation recedes, unwavering and hushed. During the most frigid evenings, our survival is not predicated upon the warmth of a blaze. The main rule is to do it so efficiently that you don't get banned for repeating content on YouTube.